Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Taku Seriyu. Welcome to the DDCP special session. Today we have Dr. Mirza Rahman, who is a very senior executive of pharmaceutical industry, and he has a lot of experience in pharma industry. Today, I'm very happy to have him, and this is a great opportunity to have the interview him. So at the very beginning, I will ask him for his self-introduction. Could you start introduction about you, Dr. Mirza Rahman?
Thank you very much, Seriyu-san. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to speak with the members of the DDCP. It's a great privilege to be here, and as I said, thank you for this opportunity. Looking back on my career, and you talk about being a senior executive, so far I've had about more than 27 years of working in the pharmaceutical industry. Originally, and I thought I'd give you a holistic introduction, I was born in Guyana in South America, probably your first Guyanese to be interviewed for the DDCP. I came to the United States when I was about 13. I then lived in New York City, where I went to high school, college. I went to medical school in Long Island in New York State. I then subsequently did residency training in family medicine, and later on a second residency in general preventive medicine and public health, where I did a master's in public health at Columbia University. Subsequent to that training, I worked in public health as medical director of a community health center in Amityville, Long Island. For those of you who like reading horror, you can read about the Amityville Horror. It's a very famous book, and there was a movie made. And then later on, I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where I was on faculty at Case Western Medical School. And I had my time there split between two jobs. 70% of my time was in the Department of Family Medicine, where I saw patients, I supervised residents, and I taught medical students. And 30% of my time was spent in the Department of Biostatistics and Epidemiology, where I co-developed a course on cancer epidemiology, and I was working to develop a public health review journal. I then left Cleveland, Ohio, because being born 8 degrees above the equator in Guyana, in Cleveland, Ohio, they had 100 inches of snow every winter, and that was too much for me. I joined the pharmaceutical industry in 1998, first with Merck, where I was there for 6 years. I worked in pharmacovigilance. I was an editor of the Merck manuals. I worked in medical affairs, and then later on, I was the head of product quality complaints and manufacturing. In 2004, I left Merck and went to Johnson & Johnson, started again in pharmacovigilance, did a lot of work on signaling. That's when Empirica Signal was being developed, and then moved over to Centocor within the J&J group of companies, and I set up and led a health economics and outcomes research group before moving to Ortho Clinical Diagnostics, also within J&J at that time, as the head of an evidence-based medicine health economics group. Unfortunately, in the United States, there are challenges with working in the pharmaceutical industry. And in 2010, about 10,000 employees were laid off at J&J, myself included. Nothing personal. It's the way business is done in the United States. I had always been keeping up my clinical work. However, I volunteered and I taught at the Bryn Mawr Family Medicine Residency Program. And I went and I saw patients for about 7 months at a place called Concentra, which was an urgent care occupational medicine group, before joining Merck, again in pharmacovigilance. And after about 2.5 to 3 years, I was recruited to go to Otsuka, which is where I met Dr. Seriyu. And he and I worked together for the next 6-8 years. I worked at Otsuka for 9 years before leaving. And while at Otsuka, we built and led the pharmacovigilance department. It became the first globally harmonized department in all of Otsuka. And we took a company that had critical findings in their pharmacovigilance work to one where the last 2 FDA inspections resulted in no findings and no 483. Then I thought to leave to take on new challenges. I set up a nonprofit where I go to Guyana now and I teach family medicine. I work at the university. I do medical outreach in rural areas. I then came back. I was the chief safety officer at Organon, and they had then, unfortunately, another retrenchment. They went from 10,000 people down to 7,000. So 3,000 people were laid off. Again, I was laid off. And currently I've been working at Cybin for almost a year now. And that is a small biopharma company in stage 3 development for psychedelics to treat major depressive disorder. And they have a phase 2 program that's about to close for generalized anxiety disorder. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what I've been doing, the training I've had, and the experiences. And would love to take more questions as you have them, Seriusan.
Thank you very much for a very detailed introduction. Your career journey is very, very impressive. I have a couple of questions regarding your career journey. First of all, what is the reason you made a decision to join pharmaceutical industry? Is it because of the snow in Ohio or something else?
I think the snow in Ohio had a small part to play in it, in that I was looking to leave. But because I had been practicing medicine for about 9 years, I felt that I wanted to do something else. So I thought I was good enough in clinical medicine. But remember, I had trained in preventive medicine, public health, biostatistics, and epidemiology. And I wanted to explore that. And Merck was looking to hire somebody with biostatistics and epidemiology training and experience who was also a clinician, and that'll come to something we'll talk about. How do you train to join pharma? And because it was something unique and new and different for me, I thought to explore the opportunity, which came to me across my desk in a letter. Merck was looking to hire somebody, and that's why I ended up interviewing and I ended up getting chosen. So in many ways, it was a collection of things. One, a desire to leave. Two, a desire to fundamentally explore a new area of growth. It was looking for additional challenges, and that's why I went into pharmaceutical medicine. And it's many ways, some physicians leave clinical medicine because they don't want to see patients anymore. They don't want to do this anymore. I'm completely the opposite. I wanted to continue to see patients, and I've done that throughout my pharma experience. But I also wanted to explore a new career opportunity, a new career journey. And I have been extremely happy with the choice that I made.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing your thought when you joined the pharmaceutical industry. What did you feel at the beginning when you started the job in pharma industry? Were you happy at the beginning, or did you have any challenges at the beginning?
There was, of course, initially a sense of loss because I was no longer going into the hospital like I had been going in for the previous 10 years. So from the time you're third-year medical student, through the 2 residencies, through working at the health center, through working in the hospital at the medical school, it was 10 years of seeing patients every day. So there was a sense of loss, and I missed that. Additionally, just on a way that we work, we walk around a lot in the hospital, in the clinics. This is a sedentary job. And so you're sitting in a room, you're sitting at a desk, and you're working. And then the third thing was there was such a steep learning curve, doing things I had never done before nor had been trained to do, that I felt overwhelmed at first. But I remembered in my early days in college, we had read and the story had something to do with courage. And courage was defined by Hemingway as grace under pressure. And so for me, even though it felt very pressure-filled, it felt very overwhelming. I'm remembering the definition of courage by Hemingway, and it was grace. And you just got on with the work, and I've been, as I said, very happy with it. At the same time, however, you will meet in the corporate world, I'm sure in Japan as well as in America, bosses who are difficult. And you were my boss, and I say this not just because of that, but you were a great boss. But when I started off at Merck, I did not have a great boss. That made it even more challenging. And I think that is something that one needs to be aware of, and you need to be resilient. And I think as you come in, you will expect to do things that you have never done before. And preparing is good, but when you get into the practice of what you have to do, there will be a steep learning curve. And if you're comfortable doing what you've always done, this is the wrong type of job for you. If you're interested in becoming uncomfortable, if you're interested in learning and growing and developing and challenging yourself, this is exactly the right job for you.
Thank you very much. So this is the first chapter of the interview. I would like to close the session now. This will be the interview series of Dr. Rahman about his career journey, and then I will ask more questions at chapter 2, chapter 3, and later. Thank you very much for today, Dr. Rahman. It is very exciting to continue to ask questions to you.